Good morning and welcome to my tutorial on how to capture packets for Wireshark. What I'm going to explain to you today is I often give the speech of Wireshark being the new butt set. So with analog trunks, you'd never go to a job site without taking your butt set here on the left. And with VoIP trunks or with digital SIP services, you would never want to go to your job site without the ability to capture packets. So what I wanted to do is just take a few minutes and go through some of the tools that you needed to capture packets, as well as some of the ways that you can install those tools. So here are a few different types of Ethernet switches as well as a hub, and I kind of wanted to go through the difference of these. We'll save this one for last, but this is your standard. You'll either see Cisco or HP or industrial Ethernet switches out on the customer site, and these switches are often capable of going in through the command line and configuring maybe ports 1 and 2 to mirror to port 24. So that makes it real easy, because anything that's plugged into this switch, you can say, I want to see all the traffic from these ports and mirror the traffic to this port. Reason the port mirroring is very important is because if you just turn on Wireshark, and I've got a computer or Wireshark running here on my computer, what you'll notice is that you only see traffic to and from your computer. You don't see anybody else's traffic when you're plugged into an Ethernet switch. So for instance, in this lab environment, my IP address is 192.168.250.99. So if I take out that traffic, what I'm left with is a bunch of broadcast traffic and a bunch of just network chit-chat of devices, querying each other and broadcast traffic. So this isn't what I want to see. This isn't showing me the VoIP traffic that I'm looking for that's passing between the devices. And the reason is this is and keep in mind, I'm coming from a telecom world. IT guys might have a different explanation for how this works, but the reason being is this is on a hub, which this is a hub over here, a true hub on the left hand side. All the packets come in, but they're offered to every single port on that hub. So if I flip this around, there's 24 or maybe 12 ports on that hub, and if I flip it around, if one packet comes in, it's presented to every single one of these ports simultaneously on a hub. Now this, I'm sure everybody's seen these, says it's a hub, but it's really not, because it's what they call a switch/hub. It's a work group. It's a small work group switch, but it has switching technology, which means that when a packet comes in, it's only going to be offered to the port that it's intended for. And what that does is it cuts down on the traffic that's presented to the computer, so the computer doesn't have to spend time processing all those packets, saying, hey, this packet's for me, this one's not, this one's not. The switch is improving that by only sending packets to the computer that's intended for the computer. So that's very good, for the PC performance, but it's very bad for the VoIP technician that's trying to troubleshoot a VoIP issue. This switch here is the same thing as this switch. It's a dumb switch. It doesn't have a management interface. It does offer PoE, so you'll see in my examples that I do use this kind of switch coupled with this one, so that if I'm trying to monitor traffic to an IP phone, I can inject that PoE using this switch. And then this is, in best case scenario, your customer's got one of these installed and they can turn on port mirroring for you. You just plug your laptop into port 24. They say, okay, I'm going to mirror all the traffic from the phone system ports or the phone ports to that port. And here's kind of an example of what that would look like. So if I go over here to my Ethernet switch, I'm just logged in through the command line interface, and my PC would be plugged into Ethernet 24. So if I log in, oops. So now I'm inside that interface programming it, and all I have to do if I want to monitor other ports is go port monitor, Ethernet, 1/1, and then if I wanted to multiply or do multiple ports, then I could just do 2, 3, etc. And then if I do end and show run, and go back, now I see that in this interface I have port monitors that I'm port monitoring 1, 2, and 3 traffic both directions, and I'm mirroring that back to my Ethernet 24. So we'll go back to our picture here and show you. So I've mirrored ports, let's blow that up a little bit, ports 1, 2, and 3, and I've mirrored those over to port 24, and this is where I'd plug in my Wireshark. So it's real simple on industry class or industrial class Ethernet switch. But when you're working with smaller gear, you don't have those features, so that's where you need to have. And like I said, I'd carry a hub on my truck regardless, just in case you get in a situation where maybe the IT guy's not there that can turn on port mirroring. You can just kind of wire this in line. In just a second, I've got a video that'll show you how to do that. Okay. So we've covered this piece. We've covered the PoE switch. So as I said, with the switches, the traffic comes in and it goes directly to the port that the traffic's intended for. In a hub, all the traffic's mirrored around all the ports. So here's kind of the setup for my first video. Is I just need to monitor the traffic for the IP phone. And so what I would do is this IP phone was originally connected directly to this switch, kind of like this phone over here. And what I did is I took and put my hub right off the switch. But since I didn't have a power adapter for this phone, I needed the PoE switch to kind of inject that PoE. If you've got a PoE injector, that would work just as well. So now what I've got is all the traffic for that phone has to pass through this hub. And as we know, when traffic passes through the hub, it circles around to all the ports, and that gives visibility to our computer that's running Wireshark. So we don't get that screen that's only showing traffic to and from the computer. It helps if you know what ports this is communicating on, because you'll see a lot of traffic, some relevant, some not, and you'll want to be able to use those Wireshark filters to filter down the traffic to see that. Hey guys, so we're going to do a quick demonstration of how to insert a Wireshark trace if there's at the IP phone side. So typically what you'll see somebody's phone that's sitting on their desk, and they'll have it plugged in, and you're wanting to capture all the traffic coming off this phone. So what you may need to have on your truck to be able to do this is what I have. There may be better tools that you can use. It's something to inject PoE, because when you unplug it from the wall jack, the PoE switches back in the phone room aren't going to power the phone anymore, so you may need something to inject the PoE. So we're going to go ahead and plug in to the PoE side of this switch here, and so that phone now will start getting power. It doesn't have a network connection yet, so what we'll do on the network connection, that's my green cable here. My green cable uplinks to the corporate network. So on the back of this hub here, what we're going to do is we're going to uplink right here, and that now gives me network connection into the hub. The PC is to gather the Wireshark information so that I can see all the information passing from this phone. It'll go through this PoE switch into this hub, and then in the hub it'll mirror the traffic around or bounce the traffic around, and then we'll plug this PC in here into the hub, and we'll be able to capture all the traffic that's going through that hub. Now we just need for these two pieces to talk, so that's simply done by plugging in. Doesn't matter which side you use, you can just find any open port on this switch and connect it to this switch. Okay. So now all of these devices are talking, and so you've got the phone that's connected to here, it's getting PoE from here, but this switch is only getting information because it's coming through here. So the only way that that phone can communicate back to the corporate network is by passing through this switch and then ultimately this hub. And this hub is what's going to give us visibility on our laptop of Wireshark. The other scenario that you might run into is that you will want to monitor on both sides, or maybe you only need to monitor at the office or the PBX side. So what you would do in that scenario is you could put a hub on both sides simultaneously, and you can set up the capture. And so in this case, we didn't need a PoE injector or a switch capable of PoE because the phone system doesn't require PoE. It's just straight Ethernet. Oops, let's go back. Come on. There we are. All right. So in this case, you're going to monitor all the traffic between the phone system and the switch. And so that means any remote phone would have to pass through this hub before it would get to the switch, and you'd be able to see that traffic. So this is a lot of times what I'll use to demark ourselves out of a situation, because if the packets aren't showing up at this point, then that means the phone system's not seeing them, and that means that there's an issue somewhere along the way. As you can look at this trace and see that the packets have left, and you can look at this trace and see if they've arrived. And Wireshark will actually let you merge these two traces together so that you can look at them in one trace and you can see which packets are leaving, which packets are arriving, and so forth. So what I'll do now is I'll go into a couple of videos that'll show you how to do the physical connections. Alright guys, so one of the other environments that you may be installing a Wireshark trace in is you'll show up in, this is all phone systems mostly, but the customer will have their IT closet, and you'll be wanting to monitor traces on the switch side, not the phone side. So one of the things that you can do is go in with your laptop and your hub. You can take a cable, connect it into your hub. Simply take this cable and plug it into your phone system, and then take the Ethernet connection that's plugged into the phone system and plug it into the uplink port of your hub. Okay. So now what's happened is this connection here is going, this red cable here is going back to the corporate network. So the corporate network's feeding into the hub. And then this cable here is feeding the phone system. So I've wired this hub in between the corporate network and the phone system. And then I've got my laptop that's connected to Wireshark. So now all that traffic to and from that phone system has to pass through this hub, which will give me visibility. I just wanted to point out these key points so that when you hook up Wireshark, you know how to wire it in. One other point that I wanted to make is don't make the mistake of putting a 10 base T hub, somewhere upstream in front of like the LAN router. Because if you put in, this hub in front of this LAN router, depending on how much throughput's going through there, you may choke the network down to where everybody's having connectivity issues. It may give you false readings, because a lot of times these hubs, they're not 100 base T hubs or gigabit hubs. They're 10 base T, which means it'll create its own bottleneck in the network when you insert it. So you don't want to ever leave these inserted in the network. Now, what you would want, if you need a situation where you constantly want to monitor the network, use a switch that's capable of port mirroring, so you can go in and turn that on and off at will, just through the command line. Okay, guys, I'm going to go through these videos, and if you're finding these kind of videos interesting, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hoping to put out about one a week. I haven't done so yet, but that's my goal. So. And a lot of the videos are going to be around moving from the digital world to the VoIP world. And I've actually got a website that's helping to organize that, which is ineedvoip.support. If you want to go take a look at that website and leave me your comments, or you can leave your comments here in the YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for your time.